welcome to another cross-border talk where we will focus on a twin subject of EU reform and EU enlargement in Western Balkans. We'll be speaking with Francesco Martino, who is an Italian journalist based in Sofia and an expert on Southeastern Europe. And we will discuss a number of issues with him, mostly the perspectives before EU integration of Western Balkans, what is realistic in the context of the renewed push by European institutions for enlargement, and also especially the role of Romania and Bulgaria in this process, given that currently their foreign ministers are very much linked with European institutions, so maybe there is some role for them to play in this renewed push. So, Francesco, first of all, let us start with maybe a large question, but it's good to frame somehow what we speak about. On one hand, we have this desire for European integration of Western Balkans, which was announced by Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, and it was reconfirmed also by other officials in meetings. Which of course faces obstacles and has not been happening for a long time, namely because it's not easy as a process. On the other hand, we have push for redefinition of EU treaties, which they say would allow for European Union to be governed with more than 30 member states, but it also means renouncement on the right of veto for countries such as Bulgaria and Romania or other, let's say, weaker member of the European Unions. And it's interesting whether this is possible or how it would happen. So in this context, my question is, what is realistic on the both tracks, EU integration and EU reform? A lot of talk, but what can happen in reality?
Yes. First of all, hello to you and to all people listening to our conversation. As you mentioned, this is a very complex question, and of course, it's a two-track question, as you said. Honestly, for people like me, following Western Balkans and European policies related to Western Balkans since quite a long time, it's a bit difficult, to stay focused and stay interested in what's going on, because we are hearing about relaunching the perspectives, EU perspectives for Western Balkans since decades. Something has happened, but in these last 15 years, not too much, I would say. So it is very difficult to say exactly how realistic new calls to relaunch what has been practically stopped with the coming in of Croatia into the European Union. This is let's say, last chapter, like last real chapter of the story. I would say that this uh, not that realistic to see other countries of the of the Western Balkans, becoming full members of the European Union in foreseeable future. We know that the countries that are placed, let's say, the best are both Montenegro, first of all, and Serbia. All the other ones are, lagging behind. But even for Montenegro and even for Serbia, it's a long way to go. And I think there is no political consensus in letting these countries in the foreseeable future. This, of course, due to many reasons. Uh, there's a long process of analyzing the so-called enlargement fatigue, the fact that many countries in the European Union do not want to enlarge even more the union before setting mechanisms to manage the countries which are already in. Uh, I I would name France, as maybe the like the most recognizable country in this field. On the other hand, since the perspective became very foggy, also countries in the region, in the Western Balkans, lost, how to say, the energy to push forward the agenda which is requested by the European Union to become a member. I would say that maybe the newest and most important thing which happened in this field was in 2000, 1 year, almost 2 years ago, the start of the war in Ukraine, which signed, of course, like a watershed for our continent, but also in rethinking what the policies, neighborhood policies, and the destiny of the Western Balkans could be. And there was some hope, that if you want, out of fear or out of pure security reasons, the EU would be more ready to push for faster integration of the Western Balkans. I would say that 1 year and a half after that, even this hope didn't bring to many visible results, and that's a pity, of course. I think that the Western Balkans are not that high anyway in the European agenda. Even if let's remember that, for example, the biggest foreign mission of the EU is still in Kosovo, EULEX. So I mean, I don't want to be too pessimistic. There are, there's a will and there's an attention to the region, but at the moment I don't see both to be strong enough to guarantee some realistic step forward for the Western Balkans. And maybe a last comment, if you ask me about how realistic is a inner reform of the European Union, which would bring to better functioning of the European Union itself. It's like, $1 million question, because the union itself is discussing about that since a very long time. I'm not an expert, and I'm not following that closely the internal issues and internal questions of the European Union. Till now, honestly, as an observer, I don't see breakthroughs there too. So again, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but if it's realistic, if it is not realistic, according to me, in the short term.
Okay, there is maybe another reason to be pessimistic, which is not related obligatory directly with the EU view, but Western Balkans are full of conflicts. We just saw how in northern Kosovo there was shootout between Kosovo police and some rebels, and there were casualties. And also, a number of countries in Western Balkans have either strong internal problems, such as Bosnia, or maybe have problems with their neighbors. I could say maybe Albania with Greece, Northern Macedonia with Bulgaria have a complex relation as well. Where does the dynamics for change and unfreezing of these conflicts could come from?
Uh, Again, a very difficult question to answer, since a lot of people are working on that, and it seems like the magic element has not been found. So I think that we should keep focusing on very concrete questions and try to solve them. Of course, countries in the Western Balkans, they share some problems, but they have also very unique situations. So I think that, for example, what is happening in Kosovo cannot be compared to the situation between, for example, Bulgaria and Macedonia. In Kosovo, we still have question about the actual status of Kosovo as an independent country. Of course, Kosovo declared its independence 2008. But Serbia is not accepting that, and the destiny, the fate of the northern part of Kosovo is still at stake. What is worrying in that particular case is the return of violence, uh, which could be connected, and I think it is connected also with the situation in Ukraine, where this atmosphere of general insecurity is also uh, making things in the region more complicated, and is maybe somehow giving strength to the ones who want to solve open issues with violence. Of course, what happened in Kosovo last week was the worst violent accident happened in the country since many years, and it's very worrying because it's not very clear what happened, and especially it's not very clear who was supporting this group of people who tried, to, as far as we know, to smuggle weapons and maybe try some bigger action against the Kosovo institutions. So again, I don't think there's one and unique answer to your question, but I would say that maybe since we're speaking about a very big player like the European Union and smaller players like the individual countries in the Western Balkans, I would say that maybe the most effective would be a clear and open-minded, open-hearted policy by the European Union, and a clearer perspective for all these countries, which unfortunately the European Union seems it's not able to provide. But I think that would be still, a game changer. I think that for people in Western Balkans, there is still no better alternative than to join the European Union, and people, remain faithful to this idea. The question is that, you know, Mama Europe doesn't seem to be very careful about, the Western Balkans. Not, I'm not saying that the full responsibility is only on Brussels, but still, if you take the general overview of the situation, I still think that the most powerful player is the one who should, move the situation, and that powerful player is still the European Union. As I said, unfortunately, there is no unique view, and there is no feeling of solidarity, I would say, when it comes to this particular question. Very often, Western Balkans are used by European diplomacies just as, bargaining chip. This is also true, for countries which should be very much interested in having the Western Balkans inside the EU, like Bulgaria, for example, which still cannot really, how to say, exhume itself from this kind of games. Of course, relating in this particular situation to the relationships with Northern Macedonia.
We see that in Bulgaria and Romania right now, the foreign ministers are, in both cases, very close to European institutions. And there is a feeling that Bulgaria and Romania would be playing some role in this renewed push for EU integration of the region. But what exactly could this role be? What is the potential of these two countries to influence positively the developments in Western Balkans?
Of course, Bulgaria, Romania have a say in this in this topic, especially because they are Balkan countries, so they are the closest, and I would say they at least should be the most interested in having the rest of the Balkans in. You said that the ministers have, experience in the European uh, institutions, which of course is something useful. Here again, on the other side comes the, different the power structure, let's say, of the European Union. When you have on the one side the European institutions that are very pro enlargement, but you have an unresolved question with individual countries. At the moment, we are, stuck in a place where the European Parliament, the European Commission are pushing a lot, and it's been years when these institutions have showed their commitment to enlargement. The question is that power, real power in European Union for this question is still in the hands of the single countries. So even one country against it has all the power to block the process. Let's remember, for example, the shameful, for from my point of view, event of North Macedonia, where after agreeing on changing the constitutional name and overcoming the Greek veto, they found themselves, blocked by a French veto, out of nowhere, because France said we are not going, have new members till we reform the internal structure of the union. So I mean, it's pretty confusing, And again, of course, it's important to be acquainted with the mechanism of the European institution, but still, you can do much to change the mind of other countries. And there's here another also element where, again, Bulgaria and Romania, they, officially have a very, very open um, position towards the enlargement to the Western Balkans, but they also have bilateral issues which are still open. When it comes to Bulgaria, of course, the biggest one is the one with Northern Macedonia, but also Romania has, its difficulties, to say so. For example, Romania is one of the EU countries which has not recognized Kosovo as an independent country because of internal reasons, because of fear of separatism. There are many reasons why, but still, if you want to play a positive role, you have to first clean, I'd say, your own bilateral issues before, playing, before being able to play an active role. Let's remember that Bulgaria wanted to place itself exactly as a bridge between the EU and the Western Balkans, especially with the meeting in Sofia, the EU Western Balkans meeting in Sofia. Now, I don't remember exactly the year. Maybe you can help me. But after that, especially with the Northern Macedonia open question, somehow, this position became visibly weaker, at least according to
Yes,
me.
the year was 2018, and just the next year, especially 2020, the politics policy towards Northern Macedonia changed. Of course, maybe that's a way to introduce my next question. There is a sovereignist tendency in both Romania and Bulgaria. In Romania, it's very strong. In Bulgaria, too, there is a strength in it. To what extent it is likely or possible that there are some surprises in this sense that such bilateral issues are reopened, or such some sabotage of um, official EU policies could take place.
Mm. Honestly, I think it is an important issue, especially in times of electoral campaigns. That is, I think that the political parties, especially in Bulgaria, because I know Bulgaria better than Romania, but I think we can extend this also to Romania. But again, there's this tendency of over underlying the issues with North Macedonia for obtaining political dividends. But I don't think that Bulgaria, the moment in which there's some kind of agreement between Bulgaria and Northern Macedonia, I don't think Bulgarian diplomacy would play would set enormous obstacles at the institutional level. So, of course, if the political movements you're speaking about will, take power in both countries, this is going to be a game changer. I don't see this happening that soon. If there are no major political earthquakes in both countries, of course, let's call it nationalism, the old way, has always played a role in politics in both countries, and I would say is playing a big role in European politics, in general terms. Again, the question is how rational is for countries like Bulgaria and Romania to be, for example, against the Western Balkans joining in. I think it's clearly unrational and it's not in their interests. But at the same time, having open issues with the neighbors and having strong nationalistic political movements doesn't help that much. Also because, and this may be my last reflection on it, if even the, let's say, mainstream parties think that they are losing ground on nationalistic themes, they could play in a more nationalistic way, just not to lose votes and support to more extreme movements. So somehow the strength of these parties is moving a bit the whole political spectre towards nationalism or sovereignism, if you prefer.
Okay, we are also aware that we speak about certain region that is kind of peripheral to the European Union, and just a few years ago we had a rebellion in Western Balkans against the fact that European perspective was not so much clearly articulated. So Serbia, North Macedonia, and Albania formed the so-called Open Balkans, or a mini-Schengen area. And I was curious from your travelings, experience, reading, and interviews, what's your appreciation? To what extent it's a good idea for these countries? To what extent it brings them closer to the EU or increases their potential?
But honestly, I never perceived this initiative as a kind of rebellion against the European Union. I think that it was, a way to show that we are not waiting, forever. We want to do something, even, if you are not letting us in the EU. But somehow, the European Union is encouraging this kind of initiatives very much. Is saying, okay, you start, and then you already built some experience and expertise in managing for example, open borders. This will mean that when you're gonna be ready to join in the European Union, will be just faster and easier. So somehow the Europe, even there was this strange moment when some people were afraid of open Balkans, because they said, okay, if we have open Balkans, then the European Union could say, okay, you already have what you wanted, that is, open borders, so you don't need the EU anymore, something like that. Uh, I think that in theory, it's a pretty positive initiative, but in the on the ground, on when turned into reality, had some serious political backlashes. That's because some countries and some political actors in the region saw it especially as an initiative to put Serbia again at the center of the region, which of course there are countries around Serbia itself in the Western Balkans are not too happy about it. The first and foremost, of course, is Kosovo, which was clearly and openly against the initiative. While that's pretty interesting, country like Albania, which of course is supporting Kosovo very much on the political level, turned out to be one of the sponsors, of the enthusiastic countries, you know, of the idea itself, which at the end of the day, today includes only Serbia, North Macedonia, and Albania. Of course, also reactions from Bosnia were pretty divided, and still and against because of this perceived major role of Serbia in the initiative. Let's remember that Serbia, if compared to the other countries, has also a much bigger production potential. So somehow smaller countries felt a bit threatened by the fact that Serbia could take over, reestablishing sort of a economical Yugoslavia in the heart of the Western Balkans. So I think that, as always, when it comes to some everyday kind of issues like being able to travel only with a ID card and having easier crossing of the borders and so on and so forth, I think very little people would have something against it. But on the other side, as I mentioned, there's these political issues which are still unresolved, and somehow they made this initiative less a success of what could have been.
Okay, you said that this initiative, Open Balkans, or such type of initiatives, is even promoted by European institutions and is not anti-European at all, as some people claim. I was curious if we transfer uh, our focus on Bulgaria and Romania, who are not admitted to the large Schengen area, to what extent a mini Schengen between Bulgaria and Romania could be evaluated in a similar way as something which is maybe uh, having potential to bring the countries closer to the European Union. What's your appreciation, in fact, of a Bulgarian Romanian mini Schengen?
Honestly, I don't know if this idea has ever been taken into account seriously by both countries. Maybe you following closely, the relationship between the two of them can say something more to the listeners about that. Honestly, it's sounds like a very good idea. Also because would probably enhance communication, travel, and business between the two countries. Maybe it could also enhance better infrastructure between Bulgaria and Romania. Maybe it could give the start to new bridges on the Danube. I've been hearing about them since a long time, but with no practical realizations. And it could be a way, as you say, to show okay, we are going to show you that we are ready. The question is, I'm not sure how and how much this would help eventually getting the two countries into the real Schengen. Um, Also because Schengen is not only about traveling without checkings, open borders, and so on and so forth. It's very much about sharing sensible information. The countries which are against Bulgaria and Romania joining in, they put a lot of say they underline very much the supposed problems in managing the borders, the external borders of the European Union. Maybe taking an initiative on themselves would be felt like playing it and not in a team with the other countries. Honestly, my real hope, but till now it's a frustrated hope, would be for both countries to be admitted directly into the real Schengen. I even saw that now Romania is taking some retaliation on, if I'm not mistaken, on Austria, trying to get closer to NATO, since Austria is, as far as I know, the only country which is openly still the access of Bulgaria and Romania in the Schengen area. According to me, this is one of the most visible examples of uh, serious problems in functioning of the European Union, where one country, can decide the fate of millions of EU citizens, and really, it becomes the more and more difficult to really understand how this is possible. I think, Bulgaria and Romania staying outside of Schengen so long at this moment is one of the most shameful mistakes that are happening in the internal politics, internal politics of the European Union. That's my personal opinion.